Hello, everybody. I'm not really accustomed to speaking out on community matters, but something stirred in me. Something stirred in me at the first People of Glastonbury meeting last month, and it roused something in my soul, especially hearing Katrine and others speaking so passionately and so eloquently about the about what would happen in the case of us becoming a World Heritage Site, and then the energy of that carried through to the Town Council meeting, I think, and it made a difference, to what happened at that meeting. It was very inspiring. So I felt called to add my voice today. As Katrine said, I put a post up on Facebook yesterday, which has already caused some controversy, which I didn't mean to do. I didn't really want to upset anybody. I just put a post up with a slightly, admittedly, rather polemical title, "We are a pilgrim town, not a town of culture," which seems to have offended some people. So I wanted to say a bit about what I mean by that. I'm obviously referring to the recent application of Glastonbury Town Council to become the UK's first town of culture in 2028. That is the application, which went in a couple of weeks ago, fairly quietly, under the radar. And I believe it's a bad idea, and I'll sort of say something about why I think it's a bad idea. I'm not, of course, in any way disputing that Glastonbury has a rich cultural heritage and a wonderful array of artistic and creative genius here. It's obvious, isn't it? It goes without saying. But we also have something much deeper than that here in Glastonbury that makes us different from other towns with a strong cultural identity. And that, of course, is our wonderfully diverse living spiritual traditions that are tied inevitably to the power of this land, to the spirit of this place. And it's something that makes us unique in all kinds of ways. And so many of us have been called here by something deep in our soul. Whether it's the call to live here, to serve here, to visit here, or simply and profoundly to heal through being here. Glastonbury, as far as I'm concerned, is a place of healing. And as a place of spiritual power, as all places of deep healing are, it's also a contested sacred landscape. It has different claims upon it from different religious orders and from secular orders also. And that's what happens in a place like this. It's a contested landscape. It's also a place where we're called to face something in our own shadow, to face challenges in our relationships, to learn from one another and to learn to accept one another's beliefs, practices, and paths. And that's a big part of what it takes to heal, to confront those tensions and oppositions and contradictions within us. And it's messy. It's not clean. It can be a messy process. But it's also something real, and it requires our active participation. And that, in my language, is the spirit of pilgrimage. And it's something, I believe really passionately, and I've walked hundreds of miles on many sacred paths and pilgrimage routes all over the UK and in Europe. And I've chosen to live and work here, as I have done for the last 18 years, working a lot with the Glastonbury Zodiac, leading pilgrimages for many years in the Zodiac. And, I experience this as a pilgrim town, which is why I put that post up about it being a pilgrim town. Doesn't mean it's only a pilgrim town. Obviously, it's many things to many people. But I'd like you to speak up for pilgrimage and what makes it different from it just having a strong cultural identity. When I first arrived here, I remember there being a very welcoming pilgrim reception centre on the high street. It had its own building close to St John's Church, which later moved to the Yin Yang building and was part of that. It rather sadly now occupies just a very small corner of the visitor centre on Magdalen Street next to the Abbey car park, which itself is now really just a shop, a rather sad reflection of how things have gone in relation to how we welcome pilgrims into the town. I mean, the town recently, as we all know, received a huge amount of money through the town deal, much of which I would say was very poorly administered, to say the least. Yet none of that really went to promote the spirit of pilgrimage here, I don't think. How wonderful would it be if we had a place again where spiritual seekers could be welcomed, informed, maybe even accommodated cheaply in basic dormitory accommodation for a couple of nights while they're here, rather than having to pay the extortionate Airbnb rates. That's what happens in many traditional pilgrimage sites. There's a place to stay when you arrive, right? And it's not, you don't have to advertise it. You just kind of find your way there, and there's somewhere for you to stay. Well, how wonderful would that be? We used to have the backpackers, but that was associated with the pub. But imagine if it was associated with the pilgrim's place, where pilgrims would arrive and, we've got a bed for you tonight, just pay as a donation. That'd be wonderful. So I've been thinking a lot about that. Anyway, let's go back to this Town of Culture Award. So this is a new designation which will be awarded for the first time in 2028. And applications are now being prepared by various towns across the UK. This sort of follows on from the City of Culture. There's been various cities that have been awarded the City of Culture Award, like Hull, Coventry, Bradford, Londonderry or Derry in Northern Ireland. I think that was the one that got the first award. And the Town of Culture Award, it says on the government website, it says it's to celebrate towns and help create a lasting cultural legacy. We'll select the best small, medium and large towns from the full applications we receive. One of these will be named UK Town of Culture 2028 and receive £3 million, while the other two finalists will receive £250,000 to deliver an ambitious programme of cultural activity in 2028. That sounds pretty good on the face of it, doesn't it? £3 million. It seems it's almost like a no-brainer to apply for a £3 million award, right? So what's the? We actually had 23.6 million, but look how that got spent. Exactly, that's the point, isn't it? So, I think we have a decent chance of winning this. This is perhaps the issue. If we had no chance of winning this, then it wouldn't really be a problem. But I think we would probably have a decent chance of winning this. But why would we want to, and in what way would it in any way benefit us? We've already seen the consequences of what happened when a lot of grant money floods into the town. Let's take the red brick building as the most appalling example of how that money was and what happened with the corruption anyway, I don't want to go into that really, but we kind of know that shameful business associated with that, which is inevitably tied to that money coming in. You could argue some of it was well spent. A lot of money was spent on the Abbey. That's a good example, isn't it? So anyway, a lot of my concerns here with the Town of Culture Award are very similar to those associated with the UNESCO World Heritage Award. Primarily, of course, the sharp spike in tourism that is bound to occur if we win, which will inevitably mean more coaches rolling through our narrow streets, filling up the car parks, clogging up the high street, even more rental properties turned into Airbnbs, more health and safety notices everywhere, more gentrification, etc., etc. It's almost just we're rerunning many of the same concerns. How would the money be spent? Probably on cleaning up the town, right? Making it more tourist friendly, more palatable to the Town of Culture image. We've already seen this happening at the Abbey, and in a worst case scenario, we would start to see restricted access to our treasured sacred sites. Probably in the name of, there were so many people coming now we have to restrict access and so on. Glastonbury is characterised by its living spirituality, practiced by those of many faiths and creeds who live here and come on pilgrimage here. This is what makes Glastonbury thrive. There's a quality here that enables us to directly engage with the spiritual power of this place, Avalon, And it's the pilgrim in us that longs for that connection. The tourist in us, and let's face it, we're all tourists. Our entire culture is now predicated on tourism. The tourist in us is seeking more of a cultural experience. You know, we want to learn about a place's history. We want to be entertained. We want to feel culturally enriched by the arts and so on, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But tourism is primarily led by a secular curiosity, not by a spiritual calling. And we don't want Glastonbury to be put in a glass case, to become simply a museum of spiritual heritage. Becoming a town of culture will obviously put it on the mainstream tourist map, a place to tick off the bucket list. I'm interested in imagination, spiritual connection, a sense of connection to the land, and that has been impoverished beyond belief by our bland modern society that would prefer to desacralize and neutralize the power of sacred places, making it harder to access them and drawing attention to them only as sources of cultural and historical interest. And that's not claiming any kind of superiority for the pilgrim, and it's not that we can even categorize people easily into tourists or pilgrims. It's more the nature of our motivation and intention that we carry with us when we visit a place. The call of pilgrimage arises from a different part of our being than does the more materialistic motivation that tourism feeds on. Pilgrimage is a call of the soul, whereas tourism is the lot of the modern consumer. We're all consumers now, right? Obviously. But what really matters, surely, is that we stay connected to something meaningful, something that makes us human. One of my favorite authors, David Abram, says, "We are human only in contact and conviviality with that which is more than human." What it is to be human must be connected to that living spiritual presence of place. And this is something worth preserving, I believe. We're living through a major iconoclasm in our society, driven by a secular, materialist, woke ideology that wants to strip away the embodied, living presence of the sacred in favor of more abstract, disembodied, artificial replication, life lived from behind a screen. In the process, we become ever more remote from the power of place and ever more disconnected from ourselves. Everything that Glastonbury is, that Avalon is, stands in opposition to this, and so it should, and so should we. The agency of the land, the spirit... The agency of the land, the spirit of the people is strong here. We know that. So let's not succumb to this blandness and pander to the lazy touristic consumerism that dwells in each of us. Let's stay alert and awake to this distinction and present to our pilgrim soul. Remember who we are and what really matters. Let's rise here as a community to defend the rights of the pilgrim against the invasion of touristic voyeurism and defend the soul of our beloved Glastonbury. Thank you. Thank you very much.